So what happens when you have like a drought?
So when you have a drought, that means that you don't have as much water, and that means that there's not a lot of rain to refill the natural aquifers that run underwater or our streams and our rivers. So how you're kind of asking how that affects us?
Yes.
So when farms have a well, you know what a well is?
Yes.
So we are getting the water directly from underground, and so if there's not a lot of rainfall, it's called like a water line, and some years it's higher than others, and so when there's not enough water refilling our rivers and streams, then the water line goes down. And so if you can imagine like a cup of water that's just being sitting, what happens to the water?
It dries.
It evaporates, right? And so eventually you start getting less and less water until it all dries out. And so that's what's happening to a lot of places around California, is that their aquifers are drying out, as well as the rivers.
What do you do to protect your farm from a drought?
From drought? Well, there's a lot of things that you can do. Specifically, one of them is building soil. So when you build soil, it actually helps retain moisture. So there's all these little, if you can think about the soil, like pockets. It has like little pockets of areas where it can absorb water, like a sponge. And so, here, let's walk over here. I'll show you something. So this right here is called mulch. So it's a kind of mulch. What it does is that it helps prevent water evaporation. So if you dig in deep, you know, and the water, it doesn't go that deep, you know, but all this, feel that? Feel it. Is there water in there?
Yeah, it's quite moist.
So what happens is that when we have bare soil like that, if you try to dig up the ground like that, it's going to be sandy soil. It's going to be hard, but if you feel that with your fingers, it's hard. It's wet. It's like sand that you play with in the ocean, you know. And so because it's wet, if there was a plant growing here, for example, pretend that that's a really nice plant. If you have something growing and then you don't have any water, all of a sudden that plant can tap into this water, because all this is water. Like there's water in here, you know, but the plant will go and absorb this extra water because they know how to do it. You know, if we tried to drink the water, we'd be eating the dirt. So plants' roots are so sophisticated that they can dig in there, you know. And it's more for like trees, because trees have such a big tap roots, you know. So anytime you add mulch to your soil, you're preventing the water loss, the evaporation that happens. Does that make sense? So that's one thing that we do. Compost. You know what compost is? So compost is basically kind of this stuff, but it's more decomposed. So the compost, what it is, it's organic matter, and the organic matter helps absorb that extra water. So it helps prevent the water loss. It acts kind of like mulch, but it also feeds the plants for long term. And so if you run out of water all of a sudden, the compost is preventing all this water loss, plus the mulch is also preventing all that water loss. And so, but it's all going to break down, you know. So those are a couple methods that you can protect against a drought, you know.
Do you still have to water all your plants like regularly and slowly?
Oh yeah, sometimes even more. But usually it all depends on climate. So if climate is, so for example, right now it's really windy, so and it's hot, but we don't feel it. But there's water evaporation happening right now. You know, like because of the wind and the heat, the wind carries the evaporation. You know, and so but if it's really hot and there's no wind, there's not a lot of water evaporation. It's just hot. We feel it's hot, and we think that plants need water, but in reality, it's just hot. You know, and then sometimes if it's really hot, cloudy, you know, we think that it's really humid, but it is a lot of water evaporation because it's humid, you know. So there's only a couple factors that make up water evaporation, and that's the amount of sunlight, the amount of wind, the amount of clouds, you know, and temperature. So only those. But we feel differently. We feel that, you know, oh, it's hot. Plants need water. You know? But you have to look at those four aspects and see, well, what's really happening in our climate. That's why you're getting like little thermometers, you know, in your backyard and that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's some pretty sophisticated methods now for irrigation and everything. It's like putting the system will tell how much water loss is happening. And then that way your irrigation can come out. But those are really sophisticated.
Thank you.